Mike, thank you very much, and welcome everyone to NASCAR Race Hub, presented by K&N. As NASCAR's West Coast trip is now in full swing, it's a very busy day in Las Vegas. Right now, the weather really couldn't be much better in and around the Neon Garage. So much to do, so much to see in Vegas, and now we're starting to see who may be a candidate for the pole position and a candidate to win the race. Welcome into our Race Hub studio, everybody. I'm John Roberts alongside of Wally Dallenbach and Casey Mears. And guys, when you look at this racetrack at Las Vegas, Casey, granted it's a 1.5 mile racetrack, but it's about where the similarities end.
Yeah, no, the first three races of the season are very, very different tracks, and Vegas is definitely a lot different than Atlanta and Daytona. The way that you drive this place, the aggregate is a lot different. The temp is very temperature sensitive. There's a lot of things to take into consideration when you're thinking about Vegas.
So Wally's the driver. What are you trying to get done today?
I'm looking for a lot of grip. That's basically it.
Are you
a lot of those guys? No, not really, by the sounds of it. I mean, it's a racetrack. It's a very fast racetrack. You're over 200 miles per hour. You're carrying a ton of speed down in the corner. And when you get to that middle of the corner, you want to get after the gas. And if the car's not sticking, you can't do that. So you can hear a lot of these guys struggling looking for that.
Yep, I'm saying Viva Las Vegas the entire time. It's time now for the Daily Fuel. Las Vegas Motor Speedway announced on Wednesday that they will host a second race date next year. The date has yet to be determined, but will be in the fall of 2018, while continuing the customary March weekend. Each Las Vegas weekend in 2018 will be a triple header with the Monster Energy Cup Series, Xfinity, and Truck Series on track. The additional Cup and Truck races were taken from New Hampshire Motor Speedway, while the Xfinity date was taken from Kentucky. So, Wally, your take on another date at Vegas?
Well, it's a playoff race, so now all of a sudden, this was one of those racetracks you always wanted to win at. It's kind of a special place to win at. But now all of a sudden, you've got to really do your homework, because you've got to be able to leave here and hopefully come back in the fall, because this race is going to mean a lot when it's in the playoffs. So I think it's good. I mean, Vegas is always a great place to go. Well, we always enjoyed going there early and having fun. So, I mean, it's good to see. I hate to see any racetrack lose an event, but, you know, it's good to see Vegas get one.
Yeah, if someone gains, somebody's got to lose, Casey.
Yeah, and, you know, it is a shame, but I know the Smith family and Root and all those guys are going to do they can. The best job they possibly can with those events. They want to still see some success up there. There's some really passionate fans up at New Hampshire, so it'll be
Oh, there are.
It's just
Great
fun.
fans.
Every time you go up there and you see those guys, you go to autograph sessions, there is a lot of passionate fans that really understand the sport, which makes it fun.
Yeah, and they still got one very important race up there throughout the year, Kentucky as well. Now, drivers used to love a trip out west because they could have a bit of anonymity around race cities, but those days are over. NASCAR is just as big in the West as anywhere. It's just a long haul for the teams to get the parts and pieces of the sport out in time as NASCAR goes west. With 2 weeks of the NASCAR season already behind us, we now look ahead to the challenging logistics as NASCAR goes west. We start at the home base for most of NASCAR's Cup teams, Concord, North Carolina. The first stop on the West Coast Tour is the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. That means Cup teams will load their haulers and head 2,236 miles west. NASCAR's best then battle for 267 laps around the mile-and-a-half racetrack for a total of 401 miles. From there, it's just a short 300 miles south to the Phoenix Raceway for 312 laps of hard racing around the short 1 mile oval. The final stop on the tour is Fontana, California, just east of Los Angeles. The teams travel further west out of Phoenix for 321 miles, arriving at Auto Club Speedway in time for the drivers to log 400 miles on this big, fast 2 mile oval. After the winner sprays champagne in California's Victory Lane, it's 2,440 miles back to North Carolina. That's a total of 5,297 miles covered, plus another 1,113 miles on the track. But it's all worth it in the end, because the world's best drivers will compete on the left coast for 3 straight weekends when NASCAR goes west. So that is a lot of driving and also a lot of racing as NASCAR goes west. We go live from the garage to Caitlin Vincey. Caitlin, a lot of busy people this week.
It really is. This West Coast is certainly a unique situation. I want to talk about these road crews for a minute, what their week has looked like. So they came back from Atlanta. A lot of them had to work in the race shop on Monday for those Charlotte-based race teams, getting ready for a Tuesday hauler departure, get those Vegas cars ready and loaded. A bit of an earlier departure than normal. And I talked with the hauler driver for Matt Kenseth and this 20 team. Now, we looked at the mileage, but he told me it's about a 36-hour drive, which means they kind of split that drive up between two hauler drivers, rotating every 11 hours. So certainly a lot on those hauler drivers' shoulders coming to the West Coast. Now for the Denver-based Colorado team of Furniture Row Racing, we saw Martin Truex top that first practice session. They also had a unique week because they actually arrived this morning. So their guys got an extra night at home and just a little bit of a nice thing for them to get another night at home and already topping the speed charts here today, guys.
Kaylin, thank you very much. We'll be back with you in just a moment. But, guys, as you look at what these crews have to do, what about the drivers? For the drivers, it's about a lot more than the racing, isn't it, Casey?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're great racetracks and it's a lot of fun, but you kind of take that opportunity to spend some time in between those races, too, out west. For the people that don't live there or didn't grow up in the west side, there's obviously a lot of stuff to experience, but being a West Coast guy, and there is several West Coast guys that are still in the series, you know, going back and visiting friends and family, a lot of these guys, as busy as our schedule gets, to be able to catch up with friends and family that you don't get to see is important, you know, so we get to try to do that and just enjoy those areas.
Yeah, Bush Brothers are at home.
They are at home.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, we never had that Western swing when I was driving, but we'd always go out early for Sonoma or
Was the West
Phoenix
settled yet when you were driving?
It was just getting settled when I was driving.
Clarify that.
So it took a long time to get there by stagecoach, too, those days. We had to leave early. But no, I loved going, especially Phoenix. I love that area and, you know, used to the Scottsdale area and everything. So, yeah, I think it was more just a change of scenery. You know, we're so used to all the races on this end of the country, and it was just nice to see some different things.
Yeah, pretty scenery as well.
Scenery.
Yeah, it's the West Coast swing. Now, it's been a strong start to the season for Ford as we take a look at some of the drivers getting ready for that qualifying session that's coming up just a little bit to see if Ford can continue on their strong start with Kurt Busch winning the Daytona 500 and Brad Keselowski winning last week in Atlanta. We will hear from both drivers coming up next on The Hub.
I think this might be Kurt Busch's day. Looks like he's going to come home a winner.
Kurt Busch for Gene Haas and Tony Stewart wins the Daytona 500.
Wow. What an incredible comeback from the two. Brad Keselowski.
For Roger Penske and Ford, Brad Keselowski wins the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500.
Well, the first 500 went to Kurt Busch. The second 500 went to Brad Keselowski. And therefore, this is where we find our Monster Energy Series standings after 2 races. Now, Kevin Harvick is not a race winner as of yet. But, guys, it's because of that stage system that he finds himself being rewarded for good runs. And that puts him in the first spot in the points. And also, shows us why Ford is off to a very hot start, Wally.
Yeah, I mean, and, you know, sometimes you just need the planets to line up. I mean, you've got the Roush Yates engines are performing great, and sometimes you don't even know why something works. But right now, the Ford bodies, the balance is good on these cars. What you're looking for is grip. You're just, you know, for drivers, we're looking for something easy to drive. And a lot of that comes from what's on top of us. And whatever they're doing with the bodies and everything is just working right now. And they've done their homework.
Yeah, and I think as far as, like, SHR is concerned, I think there's a lot of people that obviously knew that they had a lot of resources. They had the finances to do well with Ford, but there was a small amount of doubt. You know, you wondered if you're going to build your chassis right, were things all going to align and come together, and I think that doubt's kind of gone. Those guys have really shown that they've had a lot of speed. Obviously, Harvick last week was dominant, so Ford's got a strong camp this year for sure.
Yeah, and we realize there's only 2 races into the season, but well begun is half done sometimes. Let's send it back out to the racetrack and check in with Caitlin Vincey. Caitlin?
Thank you, John. Well, certainly Ford has had a very strong start to the season. This is the first time they have swept the first 2 events of the year since 2009. So Kurt Busch was able to enjoy his very first Daytona 500 victory, while Brad Keselowski was able to snap a 19-race winless streak. So both drivers earlier in the media center weighed in on the early season success that Ford has had.
It's like each team took care of one specific project, and the four of us have worked together in a stronger fashion than we never have before. But I tell you, Doug Yates' power, I want to say, is slightly better than where we were. It just feels that way. The aerodynamic balance of the Ford has more chin on one region of the car than another, and it feels better. You know, Tony Stewart being a full-time owner, Clint Boyer coming in with his ideas. We upgraded in all categories at Stewart-Haas, and so it's really neat to see everything come out of the box strong.
Yeah, it's great for Ford. You know, they're putting a lot of time and money into you know, the sport of NASCAR, and to be rewarded is something that you always want to see when someone makes an investment. It's a big ship, and the investment was made probably, you know, a year or so prior with a lot of different things. The most visible, of course, is bringing in Stewart-Haas Racing, but there's more to it than just that. We can't just take it for granted. We got to keep going, and we got to keep working and put in the efforts to go with it. So I think there's a right leadership team in place right now that really understands motorsports to continue to do so. So it's a good time to be aligned with Ford, for sure.
Well, Brad Keselowski and that 2 team already looking strong here today. Second on the leaderboard after that first practice session. Just checked in with the team. They said they did all qualifying runs during that session. So Brad has won here twice. He was the winner last year. Actually, Ford went 1 and 2 with Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano. In terms of Kurt Busch, Las Vegas native, never won here. Would love to get it done this weekend. John?
Caitlin, thank you very much. Now, when you look at a practice session like this, chances are people are running that race setup early, and then towards the end of practice, you hit your qualifying setup, and then that's where you see who's really fast. But overall, the Ford showed well in both segments of the practice session.
Yeah, and I think that when you talk about the way that you want to structure your practice, you heard the 2 car was in qualifying trim the whole time, and there's been a lot of guys that do that. But if you want to get a head start for the race, you'll start off in race trim and you know, figure out what your car's going to be like in race a little bit, and then switch over towards the end. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag. There's some fast. There's a couple guys that were outside the top 10 as well. Having a good race car at Vegas is hugely important. It's a very sensitive track.
Yeah, 3 Fords in the top 10 while in that practice session.
And I think, you know, when you get, obviously you're looking for your race setup. That's what's really important. I mean, qualifying's important, but you want to get out there and run some laps and see what your car's going to do, you know, halfway, 3/4 through a fuel run. But, yeah, I think you're right. I think these guys all switched over. I still like the way these Fords look on the long run.
Yep, so you got to keep an eye on that as we go through the weekend, because the long run is going to be key. Sometimes there's not too many caution flags that come out. So there's a fast vehicle for you, but I don't think that's going to fit NASCAR's template. That's from nearby Nellis Air Force Base. It's been a bit of a slow start for 7-time champion Jimmy Johnson and the sport's most popular driver, Dale Earnhardt Jr. When the hub continues, we'll play Level of Concern with Wally and Casey. Welcome back, everyone, to Race Hub, presented by K&N as part of today's Fast Friday. And speaking of fast, there's nothing quite as fast as the old F-16 Hornet. The jet coming from Nellis Air Force Base. Again, would not fit NASCAR's templates, but certainly could get qualified with the speed it has. There's hometown boy Kyle Busch, hoping to make a splash this weekend. Here are the last 6 winners at Las Vegas. The last 6 drivers to hit the jackpot, if you will. Carl Edwards did it back in 2011. Then it was Tony Stewart, Kenseth, Brad Keselowski. Kevin Harvick snuck in between there, and last year's winner was Brad Keselowski again. What are the odds that he can repeat? For that, we go to Todd Furman.
As NASCAR goes west to Las Vegas Motor Speedway, it's always a good thing to have a little bit of skin in the game. And should you choose to play your cards tight to the vest, you can start with a look at the favorites. Kevin Harvick priced at 9-2. No surprise given how good the 4 has been through the first 2 races of the season. Breathing down his neck is Brad Keselowski. At 13-2, Brad has been victorious at Las Vegas Motor Speedway 2 of his last 3 trips here. And the all-time career wins leader in Las Vegas, Jimmy Johnson, priced at 7-1. Now, if you're trying to put up a little bit to make a lot, trying to identify those long shots, Kyle Larson at 16-1. Larson has been passed with 10 laps to go or less in the last 3 races. He's bound to break through. And a guy still seeking out his first win at NASCAR's highest level, Austin Dillon at 30-1. You just may find yourself with a few more bucks in your pocket if the 3 makes his way to victory lane.
Todd, thank you very much. It's now time for us to play a little game we call Level of Concern. So, Wally, even though the season is young, if you're Dale Jr. or a Dale Jr. fan, are you concerned, and what is your level?
No, he doesn't really have the finishes. I mean, he doesn't have the finishes that you're going to excite anybody, but maybe a little bit anxious. But the big thing is, he seems like he's been running okay. They haven't been setting the world on fire. They had some problems because of, resulting in some of those bad finishes at Daytona and Atlanta. But I would say maybe anxious, but it's way too early in the year to start panicking or getting concerned.
Okay, so now, Casey, you're Jimmy Johnson or a Jimmy Johnson fan, whichever you want to be. Are you panicking? Are you cool?
I don't know how you could be too anxious even with Jimmy. Obviously, going into Vegas, it's one of his better tracks. Atlanta did not go well, and Daytona is what it is, right? You got in a crash there. But, I mean, I've been at a lot of Sunday night parties that were supposed to be my birthday party in Vegas, and it turned into a Victory Lane celebration for Jimmy Johnson. Few of them. So I'd say I'm probably below anxious, more in the cool area of Jimmy.
Wally, what about Ryan Newman?
I'm definitely going to say we're cool with Newman. I mean, had a great starting spot at Atlanta. He was flying Atlanta before he had a problem. So I think these guys are off to probably one of the best starts they've had in a long time at RCR. So I think he's in good shape.
Okay, so one of the winners from last year, a guy who made the chase, is Chris Buescher. Casey, what do you think about his level of concern?
It's hard to say because things are so early in the year, but I would say more concerned. Not because of what Chris is capable of doing or what the team is capable of doing, but it's all new, right? And they didn't have a good result at Daytona. They had issues and didn't run well at Atlanta. We're going to another mile and a half, pretty fast track. I'm more towards the concern side with the Chris.
Yeah, everybody gets a little bit magnified at the beginning of the season. We're only 2 races into this, but then again, it's a shorter season these days than it has been in the past. Xfinity practice is coming up next. Keep it right here on Race Hub. We got you covered as we head into an exciting weekend in Las Vegas. Welcome back, everybody. There's a look at a very busy neon garage at Las Vegas Motor Speedway as we are counting down to Xfinity Series practice. Once again, there is action all day long on the track, and we got you covered across the Fox family of networks here. Practice for the Xfinity Series is next on FS1, then switch over to FS2 at 6 for final practice. We'll be back with Race Hub at 7, and then at 7:30 Eastern Time, Monster Energy Cup qualifying, all as NASCAR goes west. Well, for the past few years, Eric Jones has been an up-and-coming future star in NASCAR racing, but now he has arrived, driving the number 77 car for Furniture Row Racing with the world of expectations on his shoulders. The journey was especially challenging last season. Our Caitlin Vincey sat down with Eric to talk about all he went through.
A difficult year for you in the personal sense, losing your father. What were some things you did to try and get you through that time in your life?
It was tough. Obviously kind of unexpected time for me, not something that at 20 years old you really think about too much, but my dad was a big part of my racing life and a big part of, everything outside racing. There's a lot of times during the summer months where I didn't really feel like I should be at the track or wanted to be at the track, but, I knew he would want me to be there.
You can see that entire interview on race day on FS1 on Sunday. It's 1:30 Eastern Time. You do not want to miss that. And also, for that matter, don't want to miss race day anyway, because we get you ready for racing at Vegas. Speaking of getting ready for Vegas, there is Eric Jones on the racetrack. He was in the 12th position on the practice chart. A little better, 191 miles per hour.
Yeah, obviously this guy's doing a good job. I mean, had a solid day at Atlanta, top 12 right now on the speed charts in Vegas. That's definitely what they need to get going.
One of the most successful guys there, Wally, is Jimmy Johnson.
I was going to say, this is not a surprise. Jimmy Johnson gets around this place really well, and he continues today. These guys look like they've got a good piece.
Yeah, and so Jimmy was one of those drivers in race trim early. Brad Keselowski's won 2 out of the last 3 there.
Yeah, I mean, they're picking right up where they left off. They've had really solid cars in Vegas over the years, and they're right back at it again.
So, of course, the Furniture Row Racing team starts halfway across the country. Wally, they got to jump on everything.
Yeah, they got more rest. They should be fast. Truck's got a good lap in there, and these guys, they're going to be tough this year, just like they were last year.
So let's take a look at the practice speeds from the first practice. Next up for this group is qualifying. Truex Jr. led the way. Matt Kenseth was up there. Casey Kane, Ryan Blaney in the 21, then Harvick, Chase Elliott, and Denny Hamlin round out your top 10. For now, let's send it back out to Caitlin Vincey for what to watch for. Caitlin?
Well, John, you mentioned Casey Kane. He has had a strong start to the 2017 season, coming off a top 5 effort just last week at Atlanta. That was his first top 5 since the October race of last year at Charlotte. So certainly things are trending in the right direction for the 5 team. 2 top 10s to start off the year. Now, in terms of this practice session earlier today, the team told me the first 45 minutes they were in race trim. They ran a total of 21 laps. Then they switched to qualifying trim. So as we look towards qualifying later today, Casey Kane could certainly be one of the strong contenders for the pole. He's earned 3 poles here before. So when we look at Jimmy Johnson, though, his teammate in that 48 team, they had a pit road speeding penalty last week at Atlanta, one of many competitors who had a speeding penalty. So they have added additional timing lines here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. So, Casey, how important will practice be tomorrow for these drivers to test out those timing lines on pit road?
And that's going to be huge, and what a great opportunity really to be able to do that. I've always wanted to have that opportunity. They did it to us. NASCAR let us do that a couple times, but not to the extent that they're letting us do it this year. So it's going to be pretty important to be able to get the good pit road speed run and know exactly what you can do. I mean, there's always a little bit of variance in sometimes what the guys calculate and what you actually see in your lights. So being able to determine exactly what that is going to be important.
Yeah, we will have that for you tomorrow. But also, Wally, shifting towards today, what do you look for in qualifying?
Qualifying, you just hold your breath and hope the car sticks. I mean, again, you're carrying so much speed, like I said at the top of the show, you're carrying so much speed into the corner. You really want the car to feel good underneath you getting in. You can kind of make up it as it goes. If the car gets a little tight in the center, a little bit loose, you can chase it, but you want to carry a little speed in that corner. But yeah, it's one of those racetracks that takes your breath away when you qualify.
It is too, and it's a little bit of a moving target. As the sun's going down, it starts to shade 1 and 2. There's usually still sun in 3 and 4. So, early on, you can push it pretty hard through 1 and 2. And then you go into 3 and 4, and it's a little bit slick. But then as you go further into those rounds and you get later into the night, you can really dig hard through 1 and 2. But got to remember how your car felt in practice going through 3 so you don't overdrive 3 and miss 3 and 4.
It's a moving target, very temperature sensitive, isn't it, Wally?
Yes, it is. And a lot of these tracks are like that. But like Casey said, it even makes it worse when half the track is in the shade, the other half. Because you get through 1 and 2 so good, then you get down to 3. Nothing happens. It doesn't stick.
Well, we will be back with more Race Hub at 7 o'clock Eastern Time tonight. Until then, we want you to stay tuned to Xfinity Series practice as these guys get their shot at this ever-changing racetrack. As NASCAR goes west, we now send it for Xfinity Series practice to AA Adam Alexander.